Like Lydia said, she and I have been friends for probably close to 10 years now, and I've been in Georgia for about 12 years. And we met through Republican activities. And the thing that I love about my relationship with Lydia is we have a number of disagreements about things. A number of disagreements. I'm sure everybody in this room has had a disagreement with Lydia about something at some point. But the greatest thing about our relationship is we have enough respect for one another to be able to have a disagreement and walk away feeling like we got something out of it. Which is a great segue into talking about conservative digital media. Because at the end of the day, regardless if you're using direct mail or digital or door knocking or phone banking, any campaign activity that we do is about building relationships with people. And we seem to have forgotten that when it comes to digital media, where we seem to believe that our job is to tell everybody how wrong they are, which is just not the case. Now, a little bit about myself, beyond what Lydia told you. I grew up in Wyoming. There's about 12 people left in the state. The rest of us blew away to other parts of the country and world. I graduated from Colorado State University in 2004 with a degree in political science. Spent some time floating around the country as a political mercenary. Some might say a failed political mercenary at some point, but I think it was pretty successful because it taught me how not to do things. And then I got into the corporate world, got project management certifications, ISO certifications, to the point where I'm at now, where I own my own political consulting operation that has given me a foundation to buy 3 direct mail houses, spin off a digital agency, become a digital marketer certified partner, do the things for myself and my family, my community that I really love doing and continually get better at doing it. And in that line of learning over the last 20 years, since I became a working professional, and certainly in the last few years, I've seen a problem emerge in conservative circles when it comes to digital media. We tend to think that we need to go on and argue with everybody about everything and prove everybody right, or prove ourselves right and everybody else wrong. And Jim Orman will tell you, I'm more than happy to get into an argument with just about anybody.
That's my job.
In certain places, right? And I'll tell you that I'm always right. But at the end of the day, that's a problem. Because as you're sitting across the table from somebody, you're not going to look at somebody and say, you're full of garbage. You're going to show them respect. You're going to engage in a relationship building process that helps you have a better conversation with somebody tomorrow than you had today. And anybody that's run for office will tell you that it's about building relationships with people better than your opponents. And when it comes to digital, because we have not found that level of success as conservatives, we have tended to remove ourselves and isolate ourselves from people that don't always think like us, which is the exact opposite of what we need to do. At the end of the day, as Republicans, we don't need everybody to be us. We just need everybody to vote with us. At the end of the day, it's about winning elections so that we have the ability to do things in our conservative method. So the solution is pretty simple when it comes to digital media. Stop blaming progressives for silencing you because you are silencing yourself. Now, you may not like to hear that, but it is the absolute truth. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Google, they are companies run by people that value one thing above all else: money. And more importantly than that, they're no different than ABC, NBC, when they first started as media channels back in the 40s and the 50s, and radio broadcasters before that. They are about getting as many people onto their platform as possible, because that means eyeballs that they can sell for advertising dollars. You just have to look at these social media platforms, these digital platforms, as the new form of cable television. And then that'll give you the opportunity to go out and do wonderful things with it. Now, that myth of us being silenced all the time has stopped us from being successful. And so over the course of the last year, I've gone around the state hosting free digital boot camps for conservatives. And in fact, some of you in the room might be signed up for a free mini boot camp at the state convention. And if you're not, I'm sorry, we're full at this point. We actually filled up all of our seats within about 3 days. Because that's how excited people are to get something different. Conservatives are excited to get out there and do what has to be done in the digital space to win. And there are 3 reasons why that just gives me a lot of hope for our party and for our movement. First reason is, we're not that far behind, believe it or not. Programmers tend to come from California. And so yes, programmers tend to be liberal in their own right. I'll acknowledge that. There's also so many programmers working on so many pieces of code that it is virtually impossible for them to engineer something. And more importantly, they don't generally care. They're so far progressive that they actually they've kind of circled around on the right. And they sound a lot like conservatives. We're being silenced, we're being punished for having opinions, we're never allowed to do anything that we want. And so they just bury themselves in their hole working on programming. Right? But the Facebook advertising algorithm is about 3 million lines of code. And that's just for one simple little algorithm in a series, in a family of coding to make those platforms work. At the end of the day, that just means we don't have that much ground to make up, because that platform is changing so dynamically every day that the Democrats are playing catch up just like we are. So just a little bit of time and energy on our part puts us right where we need to be. So don't worry about who's against you. Just tell yourself there's nobody there to stop you, because it's the absolute, complete truth. And it's important for us to recognize this, because the world is not an analog world anymore. This is my television at home. It's also my phone, my text messaging, my work computer, by and large. And by the way, it connects with this so that I can see the same documents here that's on here, and I can actually stream them to my television at home when I need a bigger screen. It's a digital world. If we look at it as analog only, we're always going to find ourselves being frustrated. We have to be willing to accept the fact that there are opportunities for us out there and we have to reach out. But it also means institutions are breaking down. Now, I don't think that's a bad thing. The world goes through changes on a pretty regular basis. Communities are being built up digitally. And the Paulding County Republican women are a perfect example of that. How much does that debate take place among people that you respect? How often does Lydia engage many of you in that forum to say, we want you to be part of the party? How many times is it reminded to people that we don't attack one another, but we can have aggressive debate? That's what it's about. We don't need to show up at a place all of the time. We have everything we need right here to do it. We just have to be willing to engage that practice. So although I don't have the time today to go through in detail all of the tools and opportunities you have, in fact, because I'm constantly learning them myself. As I told you, it's a constant process of learning. Here are some things that you can walk out of here today and start looking up for yourself to do better in the digital space. The first thing is the voter value journey. The voter value journey is a framework to understand how you build relationships with people digitally in the political space. Every human relationship that is a healthy human relationship goes through stages. Now, I always get stood up by this when I make this comment, but who here married your spouse within 13 minutes of meeting them? Somebody always stands up and says, well, I got married after 3 months. Okay, I get it. But nobody immediately met their spouse and walked over to the chapel right away. unless you're in Vegas, and most of the time, those relationships don't work. Every healthy human relationship goes through stages, and you have to be willing to invest in those stages in the way that you need to invest in them. And I'm happy to tell people this. I met my wife on Match.com, right? We learned about each other, then we talked to one another through the messaging service, and then eventually through text message. Then we met for coffee, then we went on an actual date, then we went on multiple dates, then we introduced each other to our families, then we bought a home, got engaged, got married, had 2 children, one of whom is probably a terrorist. And then now we're going through the struggles and the difficulties of life together. That's what a normal, healthy human relationship is. Yet we in politics tend to believe that we just need to walk up to somebody and say, you need to be Republican right now. Leave me alone, creep. I've got things to worry about. So if we as Republicans start offering assistance at the beginning of that relationship to say, you've got these struggles, here are ways that you can solve those struggles in your own life, we start to build better relationships with people. And the voter value journey is a framework to understand that relationship building process. The voter avatar and the empathy map is a tool that you can use to understand the environmental influences people have that on their decision making. Look, I'm here to tell you, not every conservative is concerned about election integrity. We all know that. Most conservatives out there are concerned about how they're putting food on the table. And guess what? They blame Republicans as much as they blame Democrats. Because nobody seems to care. Because nobody takes the time to understand what influences their daily life. And I was telling our school board member that my biggest concern for my children is that my second daughter, who is very much like me, will face challenges in our public education system because she thinks a little bit differently. When I say she's a terrorist, of course it's a joke, but she is a unique child. She solves problems in very unique ways. That's a concern of mine, a very distinct concern, because I remember being told as a 4th grader that I belonged in special education because I didn't want to sit there and stare at a screen then a whiteboard all day. Just tell me how to fix a problem, or tell me the problem you need to be fixed, and I'll go and fix it. That's a concern of mine. That's not a concern of my wife, because she's very structured and rule following. The point being here, you use this tool to understand people better. And then the last one, of course, is what's called a content strategy. And this is the way and the pieces of information you communicate at the right time in that voter value journey. Basically, a way to tell your story without being overbearing, without proposing on the first date to most voters. Again, we have this room full of what, 30, 40 people?
40-something.
40-something people in a county of 175,000. We're the weirdos. So have a content strategy that connects to people that are the normies. So as a digital strategist and a Republican for as long as I could vote, it's been my mission over the last year especially to start investing my time in teaching things to people that I know will be helpful. Lydia's been part of that boot camp. Kathy had to cancel at the last minute, but she got the learning resources like everybody else. We've had a number of successful boot camps across the state. We'll have another one at the state convention. You can still register even if you can't attend and get the learning and the resources afterwards, so that we can be able to help build this community a lot better and use the digital platforms that are right at our fingertips to build better relationships with everybody. So that's